Whispers of Fate. The morning sun painted Salvador's coastline in shades of amber and gold, but Valentina Rocha barely noticed the beauty as she hurried down the narrow winding paths of Liberdade favela. At 24, she carried responsibilities, far beyond her years. A small art studio to run, 3 younger siblings to feed, and dreams that felt increasingly distant with each passing day. "You're late again, Val," called Domingo, the elderly fruit vendor who had known her since childhood. His weathered face crinkled with a smile despite his words. "The twins had fever last night," she explained, adjusting the canvas bag filled with her handcrafted mosaic art pieces. "But they're better now. Rosa from next door is watching them." Valentina's workshop occupied a small corner of Salvador's famous Mercado Modelo, where tourists came hunting for authentic Brazilian crafts. Her mosaics, vibrant scenes created from broken glass and tile fragments she collected from construction, sites had earned her a modest reputation. Not enough to escape the favela, but enough to keep her family fed and her siblings in school. By noon, the market hummed with activity. Valentina had sold 3 small pieces, a good day by any measure, when she noticed him. Tall and impeccably dressed in a light linen suit that stood out among the casual tourist attire, he moved through the market with purpose, occasionally stopping to examine crafts with genuine interest rather than the perfunctory glances most wealthy visitors gave. When he reached her stall, Valentina straightened her simple cotton dress and offered her standard greeting. "Bom dia, senor. Each piece tells a story of Salvador." The man studied a mosaic depicting the colorful houses of the favela at sunset. "This perspective, it's from Liberdade, isn't it? The view looking toward the bay." Valentina couldn't hide her surprise. "You know Liberdade?" "Mateo Cordero." He introduced himself without answering her question. "Your work captures something most artists miss, the dignity in simplicity." He lifted the mosaic. "How much?" She quoted her price, expecting negotiation as usual. Instead, he paid without comment, then lingered, examining her other pieces with the scrutiny of someone who understood art. "Your technique is distinctive," he finally said. "Self-taught?" "My mother showed me the basics before she passed. The rest I learned through mistakes." Valentina's fingers, scarred from years of handling glass shards, fidgeted with her necklace, a simple piece of sea glass wrapped in copper wire. Mateo nodded thoughtfully. "I have a proposition for you, if you're interested." Valentina's guard immediately rose. She'd heard propositions before from wealthy men. "I sell art, senor, nothing else." A flash of understanding crossed his face, followed by what looked like respect. "The Salvador Heritage Foundation is hosting a charity auction this Saturday at Hotel Fasano. I've been asked to secure local artists to showcase their work. Your pieces would be perfect." "My work isn't for charity auctions," Valentina replied, cautiously. "I need every real these pieces earn." "You would be compensated," Mateo clarified. "And the exposure could be valuable. But there's something else." He hesitated. "I need someone to accompany me to the event. My usual companion canceled, and the board expects me to bring a guest." Valentina's eyebrows rose. "You want me to be your date?" "A business arrangement," he specified. "You attend as my guest, bring some of your work, meet potential clients. I avoid uncomfortable questions about my personal life. We both benefit." Suspicion warred with opportunity in Valentina's mind. "Why me? Salvador has plenty of society women who would be more appropriate." Mateo's expression softened almost imperceptibly. "Because when you described your art, your eyes held the same passion I once had before my father's company consumed my life. It feels authentic." As the market bustled around them, Valentina made a calculation, the kind that People from Liberdade made every day, weighing risk against opportunity, pride against necessity. I would need a dress, she said finally, and I'd want something in writing about my artwork. Mateo's smile transformed his serious face. I'll send a car on Saturday at 6. We'll handle the details before then. As he walked away, Valentina wondered if she had just made the wisest decision of her life, or the most foolish. Golden cages. The Hotel Fasano gleamed like a diamond against Salvador's darkening sky. Valentina sat rigid in the back of Mateo's sleek car, her borrowed dress, a deep emerald gown that Mateo's assistant had delivered. Feeling simultaneously too tight and too exposed, she clutched her portfolio containing photos of her larger works, while a select few original pieces nestled carefully in a display case beside her. Remember, Mateo said, his voice gentle but firm. These people respect. Confidence above all. You belong here as much as anyone. Valentina almost laughed. Her hands, despite meticulous scrubbing, still held traces of embedded color and tiny scars, the permanent signature of her craft. We both know that's not true, Senor Cordero. Mateo, he corrected, and what they believe depends entirely on what you project. The grand ballroom of the hotel stunned Valentina into momentary silence. Crystal chandeliers cast honeyed light over marble floors. The attendees, Salvador's elite, formed a sea of designer clothing and jewelry that probably cost more than she earned in years. Mateo! A woman with platinum blonde hair air-kissed his cheeks. Everyone wondered if you'd actually show. Her gaze slid to Valentina with barely disguised curiosity. And who is your delightful companion? Valentina Rocha, Mateo replied, smoothly. One of Salvador's most innovative artists. Her work will be featured in tonight's auction. The woman, Gabriela Vasconcelos, Valentina would later learn, heiress to a shipping fortune, offered a practiced smile. How fascinating! And where did you study, dear? Life, Valentina answered simply. The best teacher is necessity. Gabriela's smile faltered. Mateo's hand pressed gently against Valentina's lower back, guiding her toward the exhibition area, where her mosaics had been displayed alongside works from established artists. That was perfect, he murmured. The evening progressed in a blur of introductions. Valentina observed Mateo transform, his reserved demeanor giving way to calculated charm as he navigated conversations with potential donors and business associates. She noted how he deflected personal questions, kept emotional distance even while appearing engaged. It was a performance as intricate as any of her mosaics. During dinner, Valentina found herself seated beside an elderly gentleman who introduced himself as Professor Esteban Barreto, art historian at the Federal University. Your technique evokes the traditional Portuguese azulejos, but with a distinctly Brazilian perspective, he observed, genuinely interested. Who influenced you? For the first time that evening, Valentina relaxed into honest conversation, describing how her mother had taught her to see beauty in discarded things, how the favela itself with its improvised architecture had shaped her artistic vision. Across the table, she caught Mateo watching their conversation, a strange expression on his face, something between curiosity and wistfulness. The auction began after dinner. Valentina's stomach knotted as her largest piece, a mosaic depicting children playing against the backdrop of Salvador's famous Elevador Lacerda, was presented. Starting bid is 500 reais, the auctioneer announced. Valentina's heart sank. She had hoped for at least 1,000 to help pay for her brother's school fees. 2,000, called a voice. Mateo, 3,000, countered Professor Barreto. What followed astonished Valentina as the bidding escalated. When the gavel finally fell at 12,000 reais, nearly 6 months of her usual income, she gripped the edge of the table to steady herself. Congratulations, Mateo whispered as applause filled the room. though I'm disappointed I didn't win. The remainder of her pieces sold similarly well. By evening's end, Valentina felt dizzy with possibilities. Her siblings' education, perhaps a larger workspace, maybe even moving to a safer neighborhood. Later, as they walked along the hotel's oceanfront terrace, Matteo handed her an envelope. Your earnings, minus the foundation's percentage. You've made quite an impression. Valentina opened it, eyes widening at the total. This will change everything for my family. Your talent did that, Matteo replied, his usual reserve softening. Not charity. A comfortable silence settled between them before Valentina asked, Why did you really invite me tonight? There must have been safer choices. Matteo leaned against the balustrade, gazing toward the distant lights of the city. My father built Cordero Industries from nothing, but success isolated him. He lost touch with the real Brazil. When he died last year, I inherited not just his company but his disconnection. He turned to her. I needed someone who would see this evening clearly, without pretense. And did I provide the perspective you wanted? More than you know. His hand reached toward hers but stopped short. My driver will take you home whenever you're ready. Valentina felt a strange disappointment at his professional distance. What about you? I have meetings early tomorrow. He straightened his jacket. But I'd like to commission a piece for the Foundation's headquarters, something that captures what we discussed, the dignity of Salvador's communities. As they parted ways, Valentina couldn't shake the feeling that tonight had altered her path irrevocably, though whether toward opportunity or complication remained uncertain. Shattered glass. 3 weeks after the auction, Valentina's life had transformed. With her earnings, she had secured a small but proper studio space in the more tourist-friendly Pelourinho district. Her siblings now had new school uniforms, and for the first time in years, she wasn't calculating how to stretch every reel to the next payday. The commission from the Salvador Heritage Foundation, Matteo's organization, provided steady work. Though she'd seen him only twice since the gala, brief meetings to discuss the project where his professional demeanor never wavered, Valentina found herself thinking of him at odd moments. You're distracted, observed her brother Tiago, now 16 and her occasional assistant. He carefully sorted glass fragments by color as Valentina sketched designs for the commission, a 3-panel mosaic depicting community resilience. The deadline is tight, she replied, though they both knew that wasn't the whole truth. Their work was interrupted by a commotion outside. Valentina opened the door to find a journalist and photographer on her doorstep. Señorita Rocha, Carla Mendez, from Bahia Today. We're doing a feature on Salvador's hidden gems, local artists making waves. May we come in? Surprised but pleased, Valentina welcomed them. The interview flowed naturally as she demonstrated her techniques and shared her journey. When the journalist asked how she'd connected with the Salvador Heritage Foundation, Valentina recounted the market meeting and subsequent gala with enthusiasm. And what about your relationship with Matteo Cordero? Carla pressed, her tone shifting. Sources say you've become quite close. Valentina stiffened. We have a professional arrangement. He commissioned artwork for the foundation. Interesting, because according to our information, you were raised in Liberdade Favela, an area where Cordero Industries is currently negotiating a controversial development project. The journalist's smile turned predatory. Quite coincidental that Matteo Cordero would take a special interest in an artist from that precise location, just as community resistance to his project is growing. The accusation struck Valentina like physical blow. What development project? You didn't know? The southeastern section of Liberdade is slated for urban renewal, which typically means displacement of current residents. Carla studied Valentina's genuine shock. Perhaps you should ask your patron about his true interests in your community. After the journalists left, Valentina immediately called her friend Juliana, who still lived in Liberdade. The confirmation came quickly. Community. Meetings had been happening for weeks. Cordero Industries planned luxury apartments and retail space where dozens of families currently lived. When Mateo arrived the following day to check on the commission's progress, he found Valentina waiting, her eyes cold. "You used me," she said, without preamble. "A convenient trophy from the community you planned to destroy." Mateo's expression revealed nothing. "May we speak privately?" Once Tiago reluctantly left, Mateo spoke carefully. "The development project was initiated before my father died. I've been evaluating all our ongoing projects since taking control." Evaluating? While families worry about becoming homeless? It's complicated. The land was purchased legally years ago, by manipulating desperate people who didn't understand what they were signing. Valentina's voice rose. "Was the auction just part of your strategy? Elevate one person from Liberdad to create positive press while displacing hundreds?" Something flashed in Mateo's eyes, frustration, perhaps even hurt. "That's not fair. I genuinely admire your work. What happened at the auction was real." "Maybe. But you never mentioned your company planned to bulldoze my community." "Because I'm still determining the right path forward. The current plan doesn't reflect my vision." He moved toward her workbench, examining the partially completed commission. "This project matters to me, Valentina. What you're creating here, don't." She stepped back. "I can't separate the art from what's happening. I won't be your conscience or your shield against criticism." Mateo's composure finally cracked. "That's not what I want from you." "What do you want then?" she challenged. The question hung between them, charged with unspoken possibilities. But before he could answer, the door opened and a tall man in an expensive suit entered without knocking. "So the rumors are true," the newcomer said, assessing the studio with obvious disdain. "Mateo Cordero slumming with the local talent." "Eduardo." Mateo's voice turned frigid. "This is a private meeting." Nothing stays private in Salvador. Eduardo Mendonça, Valentina would later learn he was Cordero Industries' main competitor, circled the studio like a predator. "Fascinating strategy, using this arrangement to soften local resistance to your development. My company tried offering money, but your approach is more creative." "Get out," Mateo said quietly. Eduardo smirked. "I came to make Señorita Rocha an offer, actually. My company would pay handsomely for her to publicly share how Cordero manipulated a vulnerable artist to gain sympathy while planning to displace her community." Valentina felt sick. "I'm not for sale to either of you." "Everyone has a price," Eduardo insisted. "Just ask the families in Liberdade who sold their future to Cordero Industries." What happened next surprised even Valentina. Mateo moved with unexpected speed, grabbing Eduardo by his designer lapels and shoving him against the wall. "You have 10 seconds to leave before I forget my corporate responsibility." After Eduardo departed with venomous promises of consequences, Mateo turned to Valentina. "I never intended any of this to touch you." "That's the problem," she replied, gathering her composure. "You live in a world where people like me are abstract concepts, either problems to solve or stories to celebrate. But we're just people, trying to survive." She gestured to the unfinished commission. "I'll complete this because I gave my word. But after that, whatever this is between us, it needs to end." As Mateo left, Valentina fought tears of anger and disappointment. The brief glimpse into his world had shown her possibilities she'd never imagined. But at what cost to her integrity, her community? That night, she made a decision. The commission would become something entirely different from what either of them had planned. Beyond horizons. 1 year later, Valentina stood on the rooftop garden of the newly completed Liberdade Community Center, the crowning achievement of the reimagined development project. Below, residents and visitors mingled at the grand opening. celebration. Her mosaics adorned walls throughout the building, telling the community's history alongside its aspirations. "Your work transformed this place," said a familiar voice behind her. Valentina turned to find Matteo, looking more relaxed than she'd ever seen him during the intense year of planning, compromise, and occasional conflict that had brought them to this day. "We transformed it," she corrected. "All of us together." The final development bore little resemblance to the original proposal. While new apartments and businesses had indeed been built, they incorporated existing structures where possible. Longtime residents received subsidized housing within the new buildings. The community center provided educational programs, health care, services, and studio spaces for local artists, including a permanent workshop where Valentina now taught children from the neighborhood. Most significantly, ownership of the project had been restructured into a cooperative model where residents held shares alongside Cordero Industries, ensuring the community maintained voice and stake in its future. "The board thinks I've lost my mind," Matteo admitted with a slight smile. "Profits are half what the original plan projected. But the foundation has tripled its community impact," Valentina pointed out. "Which goal matters more to you?" The question didn't require an answer. They both knew how Matteo had changed, how they had changed each other. Their relationship had evolved through the project's challenges, moving from adversaries to reluctant collaborators to something neither had anticipated, partners who balanced each other's perspectives. "I have something for you," Matteo said, producing a small package wrapped in simple paper. Inside, Valentina found a deed. "What is this?" "The building where your studio is located, it's yours now." Valentina stared at him. "I can't accept this." "It's not a gift," he clarified. "It's an investment in the Liberdad Arts initiative we discussed, providing workspace and mentorship for young artists from the community. You'll be the director, with complete creative independence from Cordero Industries." Her vision blurred, with unexpected tears. "You remembered." "I remember everything you've taught me." His hand found hers, the touch now familiar after months of gradually acknowledged feelings. "Including that true worth isn't measured in what we possess, but in what we build together." The celebration continued below as sunset painted Salvador, in the same vibrant colors that filled Valentina's mosaics. In the year since their first encounter at the market, both had traversed territories neither had imagined. Matteo had discovered that his father's legacy could be honored not through replicating his business approach, but by evolving it to meet the needs of a changing Brazil. Under his leadership, Cordero Industries had begun developing similar community-centered projects throughout the country, with profits balanced against social impact. Valentina had expanded her artistic vision beyond survival, establishing herself as a voice for communities undergoing transformation across Salvador. Her work now commanded respect in galleries that once would have dismissed her, though she remained firmly rooted in Liberdade. "What happens next?" she asked, gazing across the city where countless other communities faced the same tensions between preservation and progress. "I don't know," Matteo admitted, "but I know I don't want to face it without you." The simplicity of his statement contained multitudes, acknowledgement of both their different backgrounds and their shared values, recognition of challenges alongside possibilities. "My mother used to say that broken things contain the most light," Valentina reflected. "That's why mosaic glass catches the sun so brilliantly." Matteo nodded, understanding the metaphor. Their worlds had been broken apart and reassembled into something neither had envisioned, something stronger at the fractured places. As night fell over Salvador, they remained on the rooftop, planning not just their future, but the future of communities throughout the city. Their journey had never been about erasing differences or pretending inequality didn't exist. Rather, it was about creating spaces where different realities could connect, where progress didn't require erasure of the past. In the distance, both, the favelas and the luxury high-rises of Salvador, glittered under the same stars, separate worlds sharing the same sky. Between them stood the Liberdade project, neither fully one nor the other, but something new, a bridge rather than a barrier. "We have work to do," Valentina said finally, thinking of other neighborhoods facing development pressure, other communities needing advocates. "Yes," Mateo agreed, his hand still holding hers. "But tonight we celebrate how far we've come." Below them, the sounds of music and laughter rose from the celebration. A community not just surviving, but thriving, not preserved like a museum piece, nor demolished for progress, but evolving on its own terms with dignity intact. It wasn't a perfect ending. Real life offered no such thing. But it was a beginning full of possibility, built on the understanding that the most beautiful creations emerge from fragments once thought broken beyond repair. Bridges built. The community center in Liberdade buzzed with tension as residents crowded into the modest building. At the front, Valentina had arranged chairs for the meeting she'd organized with every connection she could leverage. Representatives from local media, community organizers, and most importantly, Mateo Cordero himself had agreed to attend. "He won't show," predicted Juliana, arranging handouts detailing residents' rights. "Men like him send lawyers, not themselves." "He'll come," Valentina replied with more conviction than she felt. The week since their confrontation had passed without contact, though she'd continued working feverishly on the commission, transforming it into something unexpected. Just as the meeting was scheduled to begin, the room hushed. Mateo entered alone, dressed more casually than Valentina had ever seen him, though still distinctly out of place among Liberdade's residents. He nodded acknowledgement to Valentina but took a seat in the back without speaking. Valentina began by introducing community leaders who outlined their concerns, families who had lived in Liberdade for generations, small business owners who served the community, elders who had nowhere else to go. Each speaker was dignified, articulate, human, not statistics on a development proposal. "And now," Valentina announced, "I'd like to reveal the commission that the Salvador Heritage Foundation requested." She unveiled the 3 panels she'd transported that morning. Gasps filled the room. Instead of the expected depiction of community resilience, Valentina had created something far more pointed. The first panel showed Liberdade as it currently existed, imperfect but vibrant with life and color. The second depicted the proposed development, sterile, exclusive, empty of the community's soul. But it was the third panel that captured everyone's attention. A mosaic showing a collaborative vision where new development integrated with existing structures, where modern amenities enhanced rather than replaced community spaces. "This is my proposal," Valentina stated, looking directly at Mateo. "Not as an artist, but as a daughter of Liberdade. Development doesn't have to mean displacement." For a long moment, silence filled the room. Then Mateo stood, walking slowly to the front. He studied the triptych without speaking, his expression unreadable. "When my father founded Cordero Industries," he finally said, addressing the room, "his principle was to build Brazil's future. Somewhere along the way, that vision narrowed to building profits." He turned to face the community. "I came today to listen, not to defend a plan I inherited but haven't fully examined." What followed was unlike any corporate meeting Liberdade had experienced. For hours, Mateo listened, really listened, as residents shared concerns, suggestions, and hopes. He took notes, asked questions, and gradually, the room's hostility softened into cautious dialogue. Near midnight, as the meeting finally wound down, Mateo approached Valentina. "The commission is not what I expected." "Are you refusing it?" she challenged. "On the contrary, it's exactly what the foundation and I needed to see." He gestured toward the third panel. "This vision, it would require complete redesign of the project. Months of work. Some things are worth the effort." His eyes held hers. Would you consider being part of that process? Not as a symbol or token, but as a consultant with genuine input? Valentina hesitated. Why would you want that after what I did tonight? Because you showed courage I've lacked. Because you see possibilities where others see only problems. His voice lowered. And because when I'm with you, I remember why any of this matters. The admission hung between them, more honest than anything he'd said before. I need time to think, she replied. This isn't just about me. As they parted that night, something had fundamentally shifted. The distance between their worlds remained vast, but for the first time, a bridge seemed possible, not just between them, but between the community and the future. The following weeks brought cautious collaboration. Matteo established a community advisory board with Valentina among its leaders. Architects and planners met directly with residents. The development concept evolved into something neither side had initially imagined, a mixed-use project preserving much of Libertad's character while bringing needed infrastructure improvements. Valentina found herself straddling worlds, mornings in community meetings, afternoons in her studio creating new works inspired by the process, evenings sometimes spent in Matteo's company as their professional relationship gradually relaxed into something more personal. You've changed, she observed one evening as they walked along the beachfront after a particularly productive planning session. Have I? He seemed genuinely curious. You listen differently now. You see people, not just opportunities or obstacles. Matteo considered this. Perhaps I'm remembering who I wanted to be before inheritance complicated everything. As Salvador's lights reflected on the water, Valentina realized something unexpected had happened amid the controversy. They had begun to truly see each other, beyond assumptions and circumstances. Whether this connection could survive the vast differences in their lives remained uncertain, but for now, it felt like its own kind of art, something beautiful crafted from broken pieces.